There we go. The intro really warms my heart for this one, you know?
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Kind of Funny Studio Ghibli in Review. That's right. We are ranking and reviewing every single movie written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki. I'm very excited about it. And I am Tim Gettys, joined by Nick Scarpino.
Hello.
Andy Cortez. What was that?
Like
I
his
just
laugh.
crushed my fucking finger, dude.
Ooh.
I thought you were
expect
laughing
that.
at him saying he was Tim Gettys.
No.
Now, to be fair, Andy, when you crush your finger, you flex your tricep, and it looked really good on camera in that white shirt.
Oh, thank you, dude.
Well,
No, it's because
that's
I
why.
lifted my chair and my finger got stuck between my chair and my table.
It happens to me when I sit down on the toilet all the time.
We have Kevin Coelho.
Wait, you want to elaborate
Sorry,
there?
No,
On what you were
I just
trying
wanted to see if that would make Belinda laugh or cringe, and it was kind of both. It was kind of a mixture of both.
And joining us for this entire run of this series, we do have Belinda Garcia from Ubisoft. How you
Hey,
doing?
Linda.
Great. I'm excited.
You're looking fantastic. You're sounding fantastic. Look at you with a new
I have
camera,
a
new mic.
Yep. I'm set up now. It's gonna be like this for the rest of them.
I was complimenting you before the show, but I want to compliment you for the people. You got to give a shout out to Belinda for the color coordination between her outfit and the backgrounds. Always a big fan of that.
That's pretty
Andy,
good.
Professional.
I wanted to give you a compliment too because you had a lot of yellow theme going on, but then you changed it.
Who, me?
Yeah, earlier your
I
lights
just,
are
I
yellow.
just had my light. No, it's because the lights are on, Tim. The lights are just
That
on.
looks dope.
There's no yellow theme.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't like
Anyways,
it.
whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, you can watch this show live every Friday on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. Every week we're doing another Miyazaki movie. On Tuesdays, we're doing Christopher Nolan movies. That's been going really well as well. So you can check it out live on Twitch. You can watch it later on youtube.com/kindoffunny or roosterteeth.com. If you want to listen to it, just search for Kinda Funny Reviews on your favorite podcast service. If you want to get the show ad-free, you can go to patreon.com/kindafunny. And you can even become a Patreon producer like Muhammad or Al Tribesman.
Momo and Al. Woo!
The big
Thanks
dog.
for supporting.
Thank you very much for your support. Today, we're talking about Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. They're like, one of isn't enough in this title. We're going all the way, baby. Released on March 11th, 1984. Directed, once again, by Hayao Miyazaki. This was actually adapted from the first two volumes of an original manga, which Miyazaki himself wrote and drew. He took breaks from working on the manga and worked on the earlier anime movies he did. The manga is longer and more complex than the movie, featuring many more characters and stuff. I didn't know that. I thought that this was just like an original thing, but
Same. Yeah.
pretty cool.
It kind of makes sense though, because you see there's a lot of lore baked into this that I think for me watching the first time was a skosh confusing, because you can tell that he was like he has all of these kingdoms fleshed out and figured out, and the dynamic between the princesses and how they fit in with their relative societies is like it's a little bit more deep than I think the movie gets across. Unfortunately, not to say that it's bad. I think I really enjoyed this movie. But I went in and there's just a moment where you're like, I think I'm just supposed to sort of understand
Just
how
go
all this
with it.
works and go with it. But it is confusing with the three different, like the Valley of the Wind Folk, the Telemachians, and then the Pedgites. You're like, this is deep. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and there's more story here than meets the eye.
And there's a lot of history from the war that happened, and then how the jungle came up, and they touch on it a little bit, but I kind of want to read the manga to dive deeper.
It is the first Miyazaki movie to feature music by Joe Hisaishi, who will go on to do the rest of the movies. And good Lord, his style and scores are just utterly fantastic and really make the movies. A budget of roughly $1 million and a box office of roughly $2.5 million. This was a big increase in profit compared to Castle Cagliostro, because that one was closer to $2 million just to make. And this allowed them to then fund Studio Ghibli as a studio. So this movie technically wasn't Studio Ghibli, but the money made from it allowed them to create it. So it's kind of retconned in as being part of the canon, because that makes sense. And yeah, runtime of 1 hour 57 minutes. Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, aka the Gooch, has cited the manga and film as an influence in his video game series Final Fantasy. The horse claws in the film were used as an inspiration for the chocobos. And when you see that, you're like, oh, those things are definitely chocobos. That makes a lot of sense. Two more really interesting facts here. So the more interesting production details on Nausicaa is that the film uses 263 distinct colors, and that's it. This is largely because of the film's simplistic yet vibrant art style. And that compares roughly to a lot of the color counts of movies around that time. But the color palette of this had more thought put into it than a lot of the other movies, where they really wanted to make sure that every color kind of had a purpose or a meaning or was uniquely used to represent one of the different groups, so that people can kind of understand just by watching kind of the ideas and themes that are going on. Very cool stuff. And because of the color fidelity, though, the lack of color fidelity used in certain versions of the movie gives many people the impression that Nausicaa flies around in a miniskirt with another piece of clothing underneath it. This is not the case. She's wearing pants that happen to be roughly the same color as her skin, and the skirt is actually just a lower part of a coat. So it's not a skirt.
Okay,
at all.
that did not come through for me when I watched this movie.
So it's like when Hey Arnold kind of wraps the jacket around his thing. You're like, is he wearing a skirt? No, it's a jacket actually. Dude, this movie fucking rules, huh? Like,
He is awesome.
I while watching this, all I could keep thinking was, there's no reason for there not to be a Zelda movie.
Oh my God,
of some sort, you know what I mean? And not that they like, you know, have a lot of parallels or whatever, but just this felt like watching your favorite video game be adapted into a movie. And obviously it was a manga before, so that's where the adaptation took place. But the world, the characters, I loved the English dub. I thought all the actors are awesome. We got the boof, baby.
The boof. When did they do
Thurman was fucking
When did they
cool.
do the English dub?
2005.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And some of the highlights here include Alison Lohman as Nausicaa. We have Patrick Stewart as Lord Yupa.
Hell yeah.
Got Shia LaBeouf
Engage.
as Asbel. Uma Thurman as Kushana. Going through, we got Frank Welker, aka Megatron, as Goal, and Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, as the mayor.
Yeah,
and then
that's
Jodie
pretty cool.
Benson, who Belinda is
Little Mermaid.
Little Mermaid herself. Ariel is
And also Barbie.
Asbel and Lestille's mother. And
Also
who?
Barbie?
Barbie and Toy Story. Yeah.
In Toy Story
Oh,
3, yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
In
Naturally.
review universes colliding there.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was one other one that I thought was cool.
Was the I couldn't figure out who the witch lady was.
That's who it was. It's
Oh.
Dot from Animaniacs.
And then Shia LaBeouf is Ashful. Or,
Oh, I always tell you.
yeah.
Asbel.
That's another one
Yeah.
where I was like listening so like carefully, and I was like, I know that voice. I figured it out, and then I looked it up, and it was his first credit on
Voice acting
IMDb.
thing?
Yeah, it's cool.
Shia LaBeouf?
No,
No way.
there's no way.
Even
2005 was his
Stevens.
first credit.
Or Holes.
He did holes.
No.
What's trippy to me though is that watching this,
wait.
I saw that it was 1984,
Mhm.
and then I hear the first voice, and I'm like, man, that actor sounds a lot like Patrick Stewart. And it wasn't until literally 30 minutes, and then I was like, wait a minute, maybe they just redubbed this way later. And I looked up
Yeah.
I heard
That's
Shia
why-
LaBeouf, and I
that's
was
why
like,
it's his
I was like,
first-
is that the buff? That can't be
Guys.
the buff. There's no way it's the buff.
Go ahead, Tim Gettys.
I got there's two more facts here I'm going to combine them together because this might be my favorite fact I've ever given on In Review here because this
Wow.
is freaking awesome and
We're
incredible.
ranking the facts now.
Oh, exactly. So Manson International and Showman Inc. produced a 95-minute English dubbed adaptation of the film called Warriors of the Wind, which was released theatrically in the United States by New World Pictures in 1985, followed by a VHS release in 1985 as well. In the late 80s, Vestron Video would re-release the film again, and then they would re-release it again in 1993. And every time they just cut more and more and more to try to just make it more of just like an action, like a cartoon kids action movie.
Right.
The voice actors and actresses were not credited and were not even informed of the film's plot line. And the film was heavily edited to market it as a children's action adventure film, although the film received a PG rating just like the later versions did. Consequently, part of the film's narrative meaning was lost. Some of the environmentalist themes were diluted, as was the main subplot of the Omu, altered to turn them into aggressive enemies instead of being kind of sympathetic. Most of the characters' names were changed. They made her Princess Zandara just to, keep it more like Americanize it even more. And the VHS cover focused more on the male characters and some characters that aren't even in the film that are just in the manga. So approximately 22 minutes of scenes were cut from the North American release, drastically changing the movie. Here's the interesting fact. Dissatisfied with Warriors of the Wind, Miyazaki eventually adopted a strict no edits clause for further foreign releases of the company's films. On hearing that Miramax co-chairman Harvey Weinstein would attempt to edit Princess Mononoke to make it more marketable, Toshio Suzuki sent an authentic katana with a simple message: no cuts.
Damn.
That's fucking badass.
Damn.
That's badass.
I realized why it is the first thing, because IMDb doesn't separate like a re-release for 2005 with the dub, so it has it on his IMDb as
Under
1984.
Yeah.
Which is not when.
Well, it was cool. I wonder if anyone had any context for this movie. Like, I wonder if Uma Thurman went in with any context for this whatsoever, or if she just got some lines, knocked it all out in about an hour and a half, and was like, "That was interesting and weird as fuck." Because
it sounds like, I mean, from reading this, there was a lot that I cut out, but it sounds like for the bad dubs, they literally didn't know shit and they just recorded it. But it sounded like going forward with Disney from around this 2005 era, they wanted to put a lot of love into the English dubs and making sure that it was as authentic as possible to the original intent and experience. So I imagine that this was a bit more. There was more than
done
just
with a little bit more context.
Yeah.
No, I think they did a good job.
Have any of you seen this before this time?
I have.
Because I have not.
I have.
You have? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because Paula were watching through. So with that, did you enjoy it more or less the second time around?
It's funny because like I like the whole time we were watching it, I was like, we've seen this before, but I don't remember any of this. I remember that like the solution is underground, and so like it really felt like I was watching for the first time. But I did like as we hit things, I was like, oh, that's right. I was like, there's a giant robot in this, and Paula kept arguing it's not a giant robot. That's a conversation I want to have with you guys. Is it a giant robot?
I think it was like an organic. I always thought it was an organic like organism.
Yeah, but
like
so
weird,
are
old
androids.
school.
You know, from what?
Alien?
No, well, yeah, Alien. But what's the other movie with the two androids?
Blade Runner?
Yeah, Blade Runner. There we go.
Dragon Ball Z.
Like they're Blade Runner. They're organic.
I don't know. See, that's the thing. That's what I kind of like about this is the lore. They just talk about the War of the Seven Fires or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
the fire,
you don't get much
fire
about it other than these are like ancient warriors that they somehow have unearthed that are in cocoons and that they can birth them and go and fight this toxic.
I'm pretty sure that they were fighting they're giant robots that nations made to fight other nations, and it was nuclear war basically. But
this thing was organic for sure. So I don't know if it was an organic growth.
I mean the fact that it melted and stuff, but the beam in its mouth did seem kind of mechanical.
Well, yeah, inside its mouth it looked mechanical. Also, like the way the bones have been left from like the other ones seems very much like you know robot designs. I'm interested in actually looking. Maybe I read this manga.
I'm pretty sure it was just made of meat. It
whatever they were. I don't know if they were man-made or not, but I never really got. I didn't get the message from that. But what I like a lot about this though is I'm just a sucker for any time they smash like technology together and it works. And in this, it's so cool to see because like when she goes to the Valley of the Wind, it's like these peaceful farmers who are sort of living what would be the equivalent to like a couple hundred or 300 years ago from where we're at right now, right? Where they have these like these windmills that are running the water and they're farming the land, and then you've got these other kingdoms that are more technologically advanced. Some of them are using like guns, but the guns themselves look more like muskets. And then we also have flying machines, but she's in a glider, and all of that like. It's just so cool to see them mesh those styles of like the Tolmakian kingdom is like they look like knights. They look like you know, they have the armor and they have swords, but they also have tanks. And it's just like for some reason those shouldn't work, but because the art direction is so well done in this and the storytelling is so compelling, and the fact that it's set 1,000 years into the future, it just all is. It's so 80s fantasy, but it's just like it works for me.
Belinda. This being your first time watching this, what was your read on it?
I went into it like it was recommended to me, like you should watch Nausicaä, it's really good. And I was like, okay. And then once I watched it, I was blown away. I was blown away at how much I enjoyed it. I loved Nausicaa a lot as a character. I liked the world. I enjoyed it like 10 times more than I thought I was going to. So
when was the first time you watched it? Was it last night?
2 nights ago. Yeah.
Oh, 2 nights ago. Oh, got it. Okay. Wow.
She's cool, man. I really do like her as a character, and I think that like she's so strong the entire time, but like there's still growth. And I love how video gamey this whole thing is too. Of like even just her getting the blue outfit, and it's like they don't play it up as if it's a power up, but like towards the end when there is that moment where the witch lady is just like she's blind, but she's like asked it to be described to her, and she's like, "Holy shit, this is the prophecy!" It's like,
yeah, it was
good.
hype as hell. Yeah, the
even
again, her character, I love how earnest and how I don't know, I just she's felt so genuine as a character, Nausicaa, and I loved the actors, I loved all the voice lines, the readings of everything. They did such an incredible job of, without knowing much about the backstory of this world, immediately I know that these are three sort of warring factions, and they were distinctive enough without having to do this crazy big backstory plot line, a B plot of showing you, hey, here's the history of them and here's the history of us. I think it all just reads so well on camera, and that's so hard to do when you're trying to convey to the audience who they are, who's, I already forget, the Tolmakians and the what's the
Hedgites.
Pedgites. Yeah, just differentiating them I think is so difficult to do, but I thought they did a really damn good job.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I watched the movie half dubbed or half subbed and then half dubbed, and the dub was awesome. Like I was a really big fan of it. Like I think they
Same.
did a good job, and like obviously watching in Japanese is a totally different experience. But I personally put them on pretty equal pedestals there.
How are the when you're listening to the Japanese voiceover, what were the subtitles like? Were they super different, like in Lupin the Third?
No. It was way more similar. There were some differences, but like the point was there. I feel like all the differences were just kind of like, in my opinion, enhanced it. Like they made it work better in English than it would have if it was just a direct translation.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it wasn't like Lupin. Like the intent was all still there. And also the cast was just so good that it's kind of like,
yeah, it's hard not to like Patrick Stewart and the boof. But
Patrick Stewart as like the sword master
So
is just the coolest thing ever.
Also, his
dude,
design.
when he puts his hand up and gets just hit with it, and he's just taking it. What the fuck?
But I also I just really like the sort of perspective and messaging behind this film, right? Like they're not shying away from the fact that this is basically an environmentalist film, and it's about progress and trying to heal the earth, and how human beings are responsible in the end, ultimately, for the war and all the mistakes that have destroyed the earth in the first place. And I just think it's so interesting how that you start in this moment where she's going through this toxic forest, and it's basically an alienscape that is terrifying and looks super dangerous, and obviously that's where the gas masks, and then the sort of reveal that the insects are protecting it on purpose because they're more in touch with what the earth needs, and it's actually that those forests are purifying is so interestingly and perfectly done, especially when you're seeing it through Nausicaa's perspective, where she doesn't quite understand, but she empathizes with it for some reason. She doesn't know exactly what's going on, but she knows that hating these things is wrong, and she knows that there's more to these toxic jungles than meets the eye. And then eventually, when she figures it out, it all kind of clicks for her, and she's able to do the sacrifice at the end and make everyone see. It's just a very powerful story.
The flannel death in the chat says the beginning gave me major Rey Skywalker vibes, and totally me too. And that was something that I noticed throughout this entire movie is there is so many elements, this being back in 1984, where it's like, oh wow, that clearly inspired so many different scenes or elements of movies or TV shows or anime or whatever that we've watched over time. It's just kind of it's always awesome to be like, oh shit, someone definitely got inspired by this moment or whatever it is for things.
Yeah, I'm kind of just watching this. It's such an achievement in animation. Everything is so high quality and gorgeous looking. But good lord, a 2-hour animated movie, I cannot. That's gotta take so long to make. So long. like there's a reason why Disney feature films a lot of them are an hour and a half, an hour 20 or whatever, because it's just. There's so much work that goes into making these damn movies, and I thought it was beautiful.
I think another interesting thing about the animation, the last fact I have here, is that they didn't have that much money, or didn't have a studio. Studio Ghibli didn't exist for animation, so they outsourced all of the animation. and they would literally pay people by frame for like, so it was kind of
Holy
just
shit.
concocted Frankenstein together from a whole bunch of different people doing it. And so it's not all the animators that worked on it are even correctly credited, just because it would be impossible to track all of that stuff.
Wow.
But one of them went on that is credited, went on to come up with Evangelion.
Oh,
Oh,
sick.
wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
wow.
can see. I mean, I don't know. From maybe it's more of a story perspective, but the vibe of Evangelion in this are kind of similar. We're like, what the
Mhm.
fuck is going on? What is happening halfway through this movie? If you guys, I think I brought this up last week, but you know, there's a great documentary about Studio Ghibli that we should all watch when we're done watching all these movies. Because it was like, I forget what the last movie he was quote unquote supposed to retire on. I don't think he did, but it follows them doing that, and their workload and their work pace is it's insane
Was
how
it
much
The
these
Wind
people have to do.
Rises?
Called.
No, it's called like the something
No.
of madness and something else. Let me look it up.
The Wind Rises, isn't that the final
Well,
movie?
I thought that was the final movie he was
That might.
supposed to
I'm sorry.
retire on.
That might have been the
Yeah.
one. That might have been the one he was working on.
Right.
Yeah,
He really
but
likes
the
wind and
documentary is called
castles,
like
yeah.
In the Mouth of
Like
Madness
wind and
something.
castles.
Well, I
Yeah.
want next movie, Castle in the Wind. Let's get to the
Like
plot,
a
man.
castle in the wind. Go ahead with that plot, Nikki. Come on.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and we begin where all good movies should begin, with Patrick Stewart wearing some of his best Dr. Robotnik cosplay as he rides some crazy ass looking ostriches, also in Dr. Robotnik cosplay, through an abandoned village. He checks on one of the houses, but it's all in ruins, and he says, "Yet, quote unquote, yet another village is dead." And this is just visually for me is great. It just sets up the world. This is barren. This is not a good place to be. It's going to be desolate, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. We get some text on screen. 1,000 years have passed since the collapse of civilization. A toxic jungle now spreads, threatening the last of the human race. And then we get another stunning title sequence where we're seeing Nausicaa. We're seeing all the land. We're seeing Lord Yupa, who is a Patrick Stewart character, going through. And then it's weird how they do this, because at first you're like, oh, we're just doing more of a classic 80s anime sort of, you're seeing a smattering of the world and some of the characters, but then it actually like, you see Nausicaa, and then it just kind of goes into her story, which is super cool. And she's on her glider. We see her flying through the sky, of course, and then landing on the desert sand. She takes her hunting rifle out and heads into that alien jungle. She takes a quick pollen sample from the plant and follows some ohm tracks. This is the first mention of that, into a clearing where she comes across a perfect ohm shell, which is really big and very, very scary. Of course, she tries to pierce the shell with her sword, but chips her sword, and we get a little moment where I guess they have like xenon, ceramics, something else blades that are super impregnable, but
Zirconian.
it's zirconian, and but it snaps it. That's how hard these shells are. And she says the shell should give her people and her village material to build stuff for a very, very long time. And this, to me, is such a.
Oh, I was just saying, at one point she's like, "I wonder if I can take this back on my glider," and it's like, no, it's not possible. It's so much bigger than you.
You've seen
Well, I
the
think she meant
glider.
the canopy
I think
part. She's trying to
the eye.
figure out,
The
the eye,
eye,
so that she could use as like glass,
All right.
which is cool. But what I
love
like
the
about this is like
opening.
it perfectly sets up who this character is, right?
Right.
She's going into this really scary place, and she's A, not afraid. B, she's excited to find this thing, and her main motivation behind finding this is that she gets to provide for her village. And so all that right there is like great storytelling, in my opinion. It tells you
Also,
everything you need to know about this character.
The opening being so dark and then cutting to Nausicaa, who is so bright and full of hope, and so like I love the contrast, because they could have easily just opened up with her scene, but they wanted to
Yeah.
show you like what the world looks like and her attitude towards it, and it's completely different.
And I think
Yeah,
it's
what's cool
important
too
that
for me is having her go into this like dark area and having all that. The intro is so powerful, because I love that when we see this giant ohm thing, like there's a moment where you don't realize, is it big or is she small? Because it's a bug, you know?
Right.
So I feel like the movie does a really good job of giving that question in the beginning, but immediately answering it and seeing that, oh, no, this is the scale where this thing is that big. And these are human-sized things. And they do that by having other characters immediately like meet up with her and see that like there is this scale to it, which is dope.
I do think that there's a moment in like that like kind of confuses me with the scale, where literally she sees hears the explosion, runs to the top, and we see the shot of the giant like robot thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it is. Um,
Just call it a. You can just call it a warrior.
okay, the large warrior.
The robot warrior.
and then later the next shot is it cuts to his eye and she like pops up, but she seems way too big. Like when it was cut wide, the eye seemed enormous, and then when it cut to her coming out of the eye, she was as big as the opening, and it was like, oh, like the perspective seemed off there.
Continuity, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that might have just been what Tim's talking about, where it's like some animator from across the country was like, I don't know, this is the best I got, guys. I got to go to the next one. I'm getting paid per frame here.
Yeah, I sent out a letter 2 weeks ago to ask about this, but they never got it.
Nobody got back to me, so I'll just assume. I'll just assume the ohms are roughly 1.5 times the size of Nausicaa.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Nick, the vibe of the bug and the aesthetic of all of the sort of toxic jungles, especially when Nausicaa and Asbel are stuck inside and kind of trying to escape or whatever. I got a lot of Axiom Verge vibes.
Oh yeah, well, this whole thing is Axiom Verge, man.
Yeah, like by just the looks of the creatures and the environments, it's very like it felt like everything was dead, but still there was like it felt as if everything was still living and conscious. It was very creepy looking,
very creepy and very beautifully done. I just want to do a quick note of like I love how Miyazaki decided to write these characters, because the first character we see is an old person, right? An old man who has basically just been like, he finds everything dead, and his outlook on the world is very grim, and it's very much like, another dead. Like he says, yet another village is dead. So the expectation for the older generations is that everything's going to be dead. Then we see this younger generation with the princess, where she walks into this very dangerous place, but she's full of hope. And it's such a cool juxtaposition to have those two scenes. I think it's very, very well done. And it immediately puts you in like you're scared for her, but you're also excited for like what she can provide to the world through that perspective. Anyway, she goes and blasts the little canopy off the shell, and then using gunpowder, and then watches as these beautiful but very, very deadly killer spores surround her. She makes a note that they're beautiful, but they would kill her in about 5 minutes without a mask. And at first I'm like, is she going to be immune to this stuff? Are we going into what's happening? You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I would into that. Gunshots. She hears gunshots in the distance, and they alert her to a nearby insect attack. She runs to investigate and pops out of the eye socket of the giant head. Off in the distance, she spots the ohm that shed the shell chasing after someone. She shoots out a warning signal to them to come to her, and then chases them down in her glider. And this is the first time we see her hop on that thing. It's super cool.
Dude, what a cool ass scene though. This thing popping out straight up. Here's a boss fight straight out the gate. Let's go.
But I also like, at first I was like, oh, she just glides on the wind. But no, there is like a crazy technology in this glider, and with all the planes that like it has like a jet propulsion system on it.
Yeah,
like, oh shit.
The sound effects that happen are so cool. Like when it powers on and does the it's so cool. That being said, some of the musical elements where it's like the little kids singing, fucking creepy.
It's very creepy, but I think
it reminded me a lot of Akira.
And it was used there thematically as well. And here, obviously, when you're hearing that, you're supposed to kind of remember the innocence of youth. And then, of course, when we get that scene later, where all of it plays into the baby Ohm, where she tried to protect her the first time and couldn't, and then gets a chance to do that again, thus saving humanity. Again, I think a lot of this is the messaging for me was, these like the younger generations are going to be the one that save the world, and like these are the ones that have better perspective and have grown up in this and just are not afraid of change, whereas the older generations tend to be like a little bit more like, let's like one of the notes that Obaba, I think is her name, where she's just like the kids are like, we're gonna die, she goes, well, that's the way it's gonna be, right? And you're like, so that I think is a purposefully done thing that keeps coming up over and over again, that I think makes it ever more powerful when the younger generation decides to sacrifice herself for everyone else and then shows everyone else the way. Very, very well. Anyway,
and then we get the weird like 80s synth also.
Oh, the 80s synth. How dare you? I want you to say that again, but I want you to say the dope 80s synth.
Oh man,
there's
it's
just
awesome.
Nasty music in this. Where she goes over when she discovers the ohm, is red with rage. It's the first time we see this. His eyes are super red. She stuns it with some flash grenades and uses an insect charm to calm it down and send it back to the jungle. This is the first time you realize that these things aren't necessarily evil. Nausicaa catches up, of course, with Lord Yupa, who is hiding a fox squirrel in his pocket named Teto, I think was the name of it. The fox squirrel bites her.
Tato, dude, my homie.
Despite drawing blood, she doesn't flinch, and then she tells that there's nothing to fear, and then of course it subsides and becomes her best friend forever, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the basis of Eevee? Is that?
It was so cute. It was so
It's
cute.
That
adorable,
looks
and I
so
want
much
one.
like an Eevee. I want one
Yeah.
so bad.
I'm just saying, if there's a cat out there that looks like that, that would be acceptable for me. Lord Yupa comments that she has a very he's like,
Nick,
she's
that's a big statement from you, and I don't
know.
think it's being
I don't like
correctly appreciated right now.
I don't like
Nick
cats at
hates
all.
cats. He's like,
No.
oh yeah, he does not like cats.
It's not that I hate cats.
No,
it's
it
just
is.
I love-
You-
I
Here we
love-
go.
I
That's
love
what everyone
dogs
that actually
so
hates
much.
cats.
No, I don't hate cats. I've come to the conclusion I
Nick,
don't hate
multiple times you've advocated for hurting cats.
I don't know.
No.
I never advocate. No.
Yes, you have. Yes, you
No.
have. We have
Yeah.
clips of you
Miko.
saying if you
can
see
throw 'em
a
off
cat,
bridge,
throw
I
it.
care. All I'm saying is this. I love dogs so much more. That's all I'll say. Let's focus on the positive. Let's channel Nausicaa. Dogs are just better. That's it.
That is true.
That's-
Someone
that's
that has
amazing.
both dogs and a dog and a cat, I can guarantee you, I've known my dog for so little, and I love him so much more than my cat.
Yeah, exactly. Lord Yupa comments there's a mysterious power. When she asks about her family, she tells him that her father can't fly anymore. The jungle's poisons have taken their toll. Nausicaa wants to show Lord Yupa her secret room. She asks him to carry back her canopy for her and then takes off in the wind. And man, this is where I put, when we hear the music here, I put this movie is so fucking 80s. I love it. Yupa comes back into town like Gandalf at the beginning of Fellowship, and everything looks idyllic. Turns out Nausicaa is a princess, which makes sense since she refers to her father as king. That was a note that I put there, and then I said, don't say this out loud, but I did anyway. She's working on fixing a windmill, and it looks like she's pretty handy with a wrench. The town presents a baby to Yupa for naming, and that's kind of interesting that he gets to name it. Mito, we meet, who is voiced by not James Earl Jones, Edward James Olmos is the voice of Mito. And that was one I didn't catch in the litany of actors in this. And I was like, that sounds so familiar. How did they get all of these people for this? Is
So
beyond
cool.
me. But what a great idea. Let's see. Mito talks shit about how Nausicaa wants to play in the toxic jungle, but the other villagers come to her defense, and it's without her, they wouldn't find anything like the shell. So stuff your sorries in an ohm, Edward James Olmos. Of course, Mito, we learn later, is more just concerned for her safety because he's sort of a protector.
Yeah, with that short sort of dialogue exchange, I thought this was setting up Mito to be sort of a backstabber
guy.
guy who's going to like screw everybody over. But then I thought that's too pure for Miyazaki, and like he won't like. It just
turns out that everyone loves the princess and they just want her to be safe, but then like everyone looks up to her because she will take those risks. Yupa gives a report to the king. It's dire out there, man. Nausicaa's kingdom is perfect, but every place else is not in a good spot. The king wants Yupa to settle down there forever, but Yupa's destiny, as stated by Obaba, is to roam the land looking for the man in blue who will reunite and save the planet. And of course, everyone's like, that's just an old painting, an old tapestry that's just been hanging above the king's bed. Nobody actually believes that. But Obaba's like, I look like the witch from Snow White. So you're just going to.
This moment, I just wish that Nausicaa wasn't in blue, because they're like, oh, you're looking for a man in blue. And then it cuts to her and I'm like, we could have saved that reveal for a little bit.
Yeah,
later.
it's a little on the nose because the second they did that, I was like, wait a minute, the princess has been wearing blue the whole time.
The whole entire time.
Is she the next Avatar?
so how like the princess is wearing like no, well that's more like a periwinkle. Like it's not really.
It's got a hint of
I think that
more of
the
like a
reveal was that
royal
it didn't
blue.
have to be a man, right? Because like I feel like
they
until
could have
that
done
point,
something a little further.
Yeah, they could have done it a little bit differently. They could have had her just change later. But either way, wait, does she look like the witch from Snow White or Sleeping Beauty? Which witch does she look like? Which witch am I thinking of? Belinda.
She looked like the witch from
who has the
Howl's
Snow-
Moving
Snow-
Castle. She reminded me of
Snow
Howl's
White.
Moving Castle lady.
Snow White.
Snow White. Okay.
Oh
Snow
yeah,
White.
Howl's Moving Castle is the one that I think of first.
Interesting.
But it's Snow
Watch
White.
that too. Mito knocks on the door. Apparently, Gaul has detected something in the wind. There's a storm brewing, and something's not right. She spots a light in the sky. It's an airship. Lord Yupa joins the group, and together they watch the ship approach, and it is enormous. Turns out it's a Tolmekian ship. It's making an emergency landing. Nausicaa jumps on her glider to help guide them through to the shore. And man, the glider just looks super fun, except this whole situation is not good. When she gets near the ship, she notices the bugs are chewing through the cockpit before she can help. The ship, of course, crashes into the mountains. And there's an amazing sound cue moment here where she looks over and the sound goes dead silent as we see the other princess, Lestelle, just in the window for like 1 second, and they kind of lock eyes, and then the ship crashes.
That's so funny because I never know when my TV is cutting off with audio because it's been doing that lately.
Right.
And so I thought there for a second, I went, oh, wow, that's a cool effect. I love cutting off the audio. And I thought, wait, maybe my TV just fucked up.
No, I think it was baked in there.
Okay, cool.
Nausicaa lands. She finds the wreckage on fire. She rescues Lestelle of Pedgite from the wreckage and notices that she has chains on her wrist, so she's been imprisoned by whatever the ship is. But then, of course, when she attempts to help her, it's too late, and Lestelle dies.
Another moment of like showing so much with showing so little, where she's like helping her like get her shirt off, stops, like you see the expression in her face, like, oh fuck,
that's too
and
late.
it just closes up, and like the tone totally shifts of like, hey man, let's just relax.
Yeah, I'm gonna help you through this.
And she, and I think what's so awesome about her character is because she's so young, but she
So on
acts like the adult in like every situation. You know?
Yeah.
I love that whole sequence. At first, I thought I wasn't sure if she was seeing a wound or if she was seeing some sort of infection from the toxic sort of jungle. I wasn't really sure how to differentiate. I'm also eating a vitamin, so that's why I'm talking this way.
Oh, I thought it was a wound. I thought it was a
What do you say,
wound.
Belinda?
I thought it was because the spores or whatever, they don't want you to breathe them. So maybe like they saw an infection from her lungs. That's what I thought because she was opening her shirt. So I think it's like a lung infection.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Either way, Lestelle tells her to burn the cargo at all costs, but Nausicaa's like, hey, we're way ahead of you, because it turns out when you cram a giant ship into a mountain, it just explodes and everything's on fire anyway.
And by the way, that's got to be the biggest ship I've ever seen in my life.
It's a big ship.
We're talking like Enterprise levels of the size and scale of this thing. The destruction would be.
They go down so
massive.
easy though. Like
I know.
Like every other ship just shoots it like 5 times, and it's like, oh no.
And I'm glad that Mito pointed it out though later on, where he's like, man, these things fucking go down quick, huh?
Mito arrives and wonders aloud what a Pedgite princess is doing on a Tolmakian ship. Nausicaa cuts her chains off and then, of course, rests her hands on her chest as she's finally passes. They find an enraged insect in the wreckage, and Nausicaa uses her insect charm once again to calm it and then talk it back into the air. After which she hops on her glider and leads it back to the jungle. And this movie is bonkers. This is at the point I was like, I'm in. I don't know what's happening with this movie, and I think I'm not smart enough to understand it, but let's keep going. When she lands, she spots another Ohm. They stare at each other for a moment until the Ohm turns away and moves away. Up in the air, massive bombers approach. Down below, the villagers search for their crops. Let's see. The ship was infected with spores, and they need to burn everything that they could find. Other villagers find a massive pulsating cocoon in the wreckage. Lord Yupa tells Mito that it might be a dormant egg of one of the giant warriors, a monster from the old world, from the 7 days of fire that has been unearthed by the Pedgite kingdom. The giant warriors incinerated the earth and then turned to stone when they were done.
Damn, make this a damn video game. Seriously, guys, play Hyper Light Drifter. There's a lot of the same vibes here with the Titans, guys. It's so cool, man. It's so cool.
Lord Yupa is worried by the whole situation. Why would the Tolmekians have a Pedgite prisoner on board? What the hell's going on? The Tolmekian airships arrive and land very sloppily on the ground. Soldiers pour out and head toward the king. Obaba stays by his side. Once upstairs, they apparently kill the king. And then Nausicaa runs in and uses a tiny little polo stick to just utterly decimate all of these soldiers.
They killed the king just like outright. They just went in there and shot him, right? Like they were just like, oh. And then moments later, they're like, oh, it's cool. We come in peace, dude. No one freak out.
I was kind of confused by that because I felt like they showed much more resolve, or I guess I don't know. They were so quick to kill the king, and then they were so hesitant to do anything else, like with that sort of same force, which kind of threw me off.
Well, I think that it's because Yupa comes in and sort of like just decompresses the situation and says he tells Nausicaa like, we can't do anything. Like if you fight them, they're just going to kill everyone. So let's just capitulate.
Also, they keep calling her princess, but like, isn't she then the queen? If her dad died?
Unless the king dies. Yeah, but that, you have to figure the email takes a long time to get around. Like, I didn't see the Slack.
No, that's not true. No, but we saw the email.
Right now.
We saw the email go out moments after this where the witch lady's like, I'll be a lot fucking easier to kill than our king. You
Right.
assholes, which was really slick. Real good move on
then-
her
Yeah, it
end.
was good.
But you have to figure that Obaba or
She's
so,
the
or
MVP.
Yuba has to coronate her as the king, as a queen. We'll figure that out later when we rescue everyone from the Ohms in Act 3. Of course, this is where we see Kushana, I think is how you say her name. She comes in dressed in full knight armor, which is super cool, played of course by Uma Thurman. She addresses the villagers. She wants to unify the kingdoms and use their weapon to burn down the toxic jungle so humans can rule the world once again. Obaba tells them they need to stay away from the jungle. You mess with it and it'll enrage the Ohm, who will stampede across the land and pretty much decimate everything. And when they die, their corpses will fill with spores and create more toxic jungle. And
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
just gotta stay out of the jungle. There's just too many trees, way too many bushes. I wish there was some way to deal with
how do
all
you
of
trim
that.
them? How can you trim
Ladies
those
and gentlemen,
bushes?
this episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Summer's in full action. We're thankful for our sponsor today, Manscaped, for keeping us fresh. Sun's out, bums out, and hopefully your pubes are not out in that toxic jungle. Manscaped offers all the right tools to keep your hair groomed below and above the belt. Manscaped's dedicated to helping you level up your full body grooming game. They just released their Shears 2.0 Nail Kit, which is the perfect add-on to their Lawnmower 3.0 or perfect package. They're just trying to make sure that you are just fully groomed to the best of your abilities. And everyone around you is going to appreciate that. Gia appreciates it a lot. I can tell you that much. Inside the perfect package, you'll also find the Manscaped Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer, because we know how painful chafing can be when you're wearing your bathing suit all day. For a limited time, you guys can get 2 free gifts, a Shed travel bag and the patented high-performance reduced chafing Manscaped boxer briefs. You can get 20% off plus free shipping with the code MORNING at manscaped.com. Do yourself a favor. Always use the right tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code MORNING at manscaped.com. Summer's here. It's time to manscape. Manscaped.com. 20% off. Use code MORNING. Back to the plot. Back to the jungle.
Support our sponsors so they know to support us, everybody. Thank you so much, Manscaped.
The villagers, of course, are angry because Obaba tells them that the Tolmekians killed their bedridden king. The villagers get angry, but Nausicaa steps in and tells them they need to cooperate with the Tolmekians. They pull the cocoon out of the ship, and Kurotoa, played by Chris Sarandon, which is just... are you guys familiar with this actor at all?
Mm-mm.
Chris Sarandon, of course, it was King or Prince Humperdinck in The Princess Bride. If you guys ever seen that movie, he's just a weird ass pull for this specific character, and I don't think he understood what was going on in the movie because he plays it so comically, like, "Oh, I guess I'm okay now. Who cares? Whatever." But
He was a very weird character.
an
Yeah.
odd character. I don't know if he quite understood what was happening, but to me, whatever. It was cool to see. It's cool to hear his voice. Of course, he plays Kurotoa. Kurotoa wants to bring the monster back home, but Kushana has other plans. She's going to start her own kingdom. First thing in the morning, she's going to take the 5 hostages and the princess and report back to Pejite. I'm not quite sure why she was doing that, but that's what she wanted to do. Meanwhile, they're supposed to stay there and hatch the monster so she could use it to basically just wreck shop. Yupa and Mito.
Oh, shit. The
What's
Lou
up?
55 says he was Jack Skellington.
Oh,
Was he?
Wow.
Dude, that's cool as hell.
that is very cool.
Her name was Jack Skellington. So that's cool. Yupa and Mito confer. Mito is going with Nausicaa, and Yupa is gonna slip out and try to figure out what the hell's going on. The only concern right now should be that the warrior not hatch. Yupa heads up to Nausicaa's room and he finds Teto scratching at a hidden door in the wall. When he heads downstairs to investigate, he finds the secret room she was talking about, which is actually a small garden down below full of toxic plants, but important to note, none of the air or water is toxic. She's pure. These have been purified because she has used the soil and the water from well below the earth, and apparently all that stuff's good to go. And she's like, I don't know what to make of this, but if you dry this particular plant out and smoke it, fuck. You know what I mean, Andy?
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy.
Belinda.
You know I love smoking it up, baby. You know?
You know, they used to there's a specific banana, Andy, that you could dry out the peel from and smoke it. It's called Mellow Yellow, and it apparently was great. I tried to do that when I was a kid because my uncle Jim told me about it. My parents were like, why are there fucking banana peels all over your windowsill? And I was like, I don't know. And apparently I did. I guess Chiquita bananas, Belinda, don't work. Those aren't the right ones.
Oh,
Good to know.
I don't know why you went to Belinda there.
I
I thought you were going to Belinda as if she's like the expert on Chiquita bananas.
No, I just like to include everyone in Nick Scarpino's board growing up in Riverside trying to get high antics. It's okay, Kevin. I found cigarettes, and those were the jam for a very, very long time. So they have that conversation. Nausicaa is afraid for herself. She has just been enraged and basically killed a ton of people, and she's never seen that. So she's like, all this shit has to stop. I don't like myself when I'm like that. Of course, I guess your dad only dies once, period, so you're probably fine. But anyway, some kids give Nausicaa some nuts as she's about to take off in the Tolmekian ship. Up in the sky, a lone Pejite gunship flies high above the Tolmekian ships. The Valley prisoners note that the squadron is flying close together, fearing an attack, and of course, that attack comes very quickly as Nausicaa spots the gunship attacking from above. It blasts through the hull of the number 2 ship and then quickly makes work at the number 3 ship and some of the ships in the rear, leaving only Nausicaa's ship. She goes outside to yell at him, and this is another thing. Like, I think she does this at the end as well, where she kind of puts her arms out and in sort of a protest of saying, like, I'm willing to sacrifice myself, but you need to stop what you're doing. And this is like the most, I think this is a great moment for her, because instead of using a weapon to shoot him down, she just goes up there and like yells like stop, and like puts her arms out almost in an embrace.
And it kind of creates this ghostly spirit that appears in front of him. I wasn't sure what was happening there.
It's his sister. It's Listel. She looks like it actually flashes to the red.
Okay, gotcha. I missed that.
Wearing, and he gets reminded of her, and he stops. It veers him off.
Gotcha. I missed that totally then, because I thought like I at that point I thought, oh, she's got some powers. Like, she's not just doing stuff with nature. She's like a spirit of some sort. I don't know.
I don't think it was supernatural. I think she just is so. I think there is an element of something else going on with her, because she is so in tune with other people's like emotions and empathetic states. But I think she just kind of puts herself out there and is willing to sacrifice herself for other people, and that just has like powerful effects on everyone around her. Because she has the same moment later when she attacks that like airship that's carrying the little baby Ohm. And we get another similar thing where the guy's he's like, I don't want to shoot at her because I've never seen anyone just blatantly come at me like this and sacrifice themselves for something.
Yeah, but I feel like the other guy's like, fuck this, scoot over.
Yeah, the older guy was like, I'm a shooter. Yeah, again, we get another old versus young. Like, the younger guy's like, I don't want to do this, and the old guy's like, just fucking pull the trigger, man. It's a 50 cal. It shoots itself. Let's see. Kushana spots them. He gets shot down, and Nausicaa and Mito head to the cargo hold to jump in another gunship. Kushana spots them, and so Nausicaa yells for her to jump on board as the rest of the ship is just being burned around her. They bounce out and fly below the clouds to rescue the cargo barge that has been separated from the fleet, carrying the rest of her people. And another dope-ass 80s beat plays as they fly into the toxic cloud. They spot the barge, but the tow hook has been broken, and they can't understand what she's saying. She's screaming to them to like, they're going to drop her a line and they can't understand. So she takes her mask off. Another moment where she just says, fuck it, and takes the mask off. And they're like, put your mask back on. And she's like, I'm fine. And then when she lands, she's like, oh, I don't feel so good. I did, in fact, inhale some of those spores. Let's see. They throw out all of their cargo and land in the water below. Kushana pulls a gun out on them, but Nausicaa reminds her that if she pulls the trigger, it further enrage the insects that are flying above, and they're ready to pounce already. Of course, she doesn't listen and pulls the trigger anyway, but Nausicaa tells her to calm down and stop being afraid. And this is a turning point for Thurman's character here too, where she's like, what is going on with this princess? How is she just dealing with this so much differently than the rest of us? Instead of violence, she deals with it with compassion, which is fucking nuts. Of course, before she can reason further, a pack of ohms ascend from the water below. Nausicaa tells everyone to stay calm. She asks them for forgiveness, and they reach out to her with their, I'm assuming, feelers. What do we call these things? Is that what insects
Tentacles,
have? Feelers, yeah.
Tentacles,
feelers.
A lot of little tongues.
Let's not call them tentacles. I'm going to go for
feelers. Yeah,
but we're okay with tongues? We feel okay with tongues?
No, we're going to say feelers.
No tentacles.
They seem like a bunch of little tongues, right?
Tiny tongues are creepier than tentacles.
I think feelers, yeah.
Andy, stick your tongue out right now. Someone comp Andy's tongue over the rest of his frame. And that's how gross it's going to be. I want the same. I want you to just copy and paste it from the top left-hand corner and just give me ranks of his little tongue and just leave his face.
Little tongue.
That's what I want.
Nick, have you ever looked at a cat's tongue?
Yeah,
I forgot where this came up recently, but I didn't know that it had weird ass like little sharp things on it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's crazy, Tim? Lions also have big versions of it, and it does not feel good because it's meant to remove the meat off of bones they're licking.
Oh,
like
Jesus Christ, that's something I'll never get out of my head. Thanks, Kev.
Way to
fuck up my whole weekend, Kevin, with terror. Okay. Let's see. Before they can reason further. Okay. Yeah. So they surround her, and we get that there's a lot more to these ohms than meets the eye again, because they sort of like empathetically can feel her emotional state and like her apology, and so they start to work their way off. And they kind of like encapsulate her and entomb her, and they reach. And this is where we get another one of those moments where they kind of, I don't know if they're reaching into her mind or what's going on here, but we start getting the seeds of that flashback of her as a child. We hear the music, we hear the singing, we see her floating in the symbolic field of wheat. That's the golden field of wheat that Obama was talking about in the first act, where she was talking about that the character will be here, but we see her and we're starting to get that imagery as well. And then we're snapped out of it when we see the pilot from Pejite, who's still alive. And then all the ohms get just red with rage. Their eyes go super red, and they go after him. Nausicaa grabs her glider and tells them to take off. Tells the barge and her people to take off as soon as the water's clear, and she heads off with the insect swarm. Of course, when we catch up with the Pejite prisoner, he's being overrun by the insects. He's trapped on a cliff, and he's run out of ammo, so he has no other option but to jump off. As he does so, we see a dragonfly go after him, and it's about to eat him. But who should save him? Of course, it's Nausicaa with the glider.
Scary.
Yeah.
These things are like terrifying, man. You're talking about the big worm creature looking
Like
thing,
a
right?
centipede
It was like a
type
millipede,
thing.
right?
Yeah, like a flying millipede thing. It's terrifying.
Here's the thing:
So gross.
bugs are terrifying. We all know
They are.
that.
They should all be killed.
Have you
We don't
guys
eat them.
ever seen millipedes eat like rats? Because
No, and I never want
that's
to.
what they
I don't wanna
do.
think about it.
People have giant millipedes or centipedes, and they feed like mice and rats to it.
I don't
And
like
it's
that.
horrifying. Don't YouTube it.
I won't. I absolutely
Because
won't.
I have. Huh?
Centipedes are the dangerous ones, right?
I don't know, man. They're fucking terrifying. All right, they're
It's
awful creatures, and frankly,
They shouldn't
You know,
float
you know,
either.
it reminds me of the time that Andy introduced me to Dog Cat. Is that what it's called, Andy? Where it's like it's just something smashed together, and you don't know where the butt is, and you're like, "What is this horrible abomination?"
wait, did
Talking about
Andy
cat
really
dog?
All right,
introduce you to
guys,
cat
I'm
dog?
out. Bye.
Are you talking about Cat Dog, the cartoon?
Yeah, that's what I want. Cat dog.
I was like,
God
dog.
Is it cat dog? See, this is where my mind goes because I put dogs first, Kevin. Of course I do.
They're the best. Everybody
that-
knows that.
Oh, man.
Nick, that's the perfect way to get yourself out of the situation.
So good.
I put dogs first.
Stupid Nick.
Gold.
I digress, everyone. Let's see. She makes a note. She says, "Look, I have to rescue. I got to get you out of here. I can't calm them anymore because you've done far too much killing to calm the insects. They got to escape the old-fashioned way by basically just crashing underneath into the floor below. They plunge into it, of course, and they crash through it. And you guessed it, guys. What do they land in, Tim? The second scariest thing the '80s have to offer: quicksand. What's the first, Andy?
Okay. Lasers.
Lasers.
Lasers. We've already learned this
Lasers,
thing, guys.
quicksand.
Just protect yourself from the two most deadliest things from 3-4 decades ago. Of course, they land in the quicksand and they start to get engulfed by it. And Asbel, who is the Pejite soldier, tries to save the princess, but cannot. And along with the glider, they all get sucked under. Nausicaa, of course, has another vision of herself as a child. This is the one where we see her saving the baby Ohm from some of the soldiers that want to kill it, but it's super sad because they tear it out of her arms anyway. And they say that insects and humans cannot live in the same world. And she's like, I beg to differ. She wakes up as Teto is snuggling her face, proving once again that if a cat looked like this and acted like this, cats would be a-okay in my book, but they don't.
Give me a cat that looks
they're the
like
devil's
that,
spawn.
and I will bring it to you.
Thank you. If you find a cat that looks like that, bring it to me, and then we'll have the fun conversation with my wife about keeping it. And I guarantee she'll say it's one or the other, and I'll probably
Nick.
get out on my ass.
Nick,
she'll kick me out.
I would love it if she was like, you can have the cat, but you have to get rid of 3 shirts.
Oh my God. Like, damn it. I just walk in. I've got one. I've just got the KFAF Pride shirt left. That's it. Of course, looking around, she sees, when she wakes up, she looks around and sees the vast remnants of an old forest that are like basically the tree trunks look very, very normal, what you expect. But when she looks up, the canopy above is where the toxic jungle is forming. Asbel brings Nausicaa her glider and introduces himself. They fill through the hole apparently above in the toxic jungle, and sand. Let's see, sand in the pocket of clean air. Oh, okay. So they basically the idea here is that she looks up and she figures out that the sand is like petrified and purifying, and when it falls through, it's basically everything down there, the air, the water has been purified, and she surmises from that the jungle above is having some sort of effect that when the trees themselves die above, they petrify and they come down and they form soil that can be usable and potable for humans.
Of life.
And it's really, really
I
cool.
love where she cries here. It's just so beautiful.
It's
Like,
like,
and
so
he's like, yeah. And she's like, this is awesome. Like,
And of course, it proves her theory from earlier that the forest is actually part of all the restoration process, and then of course needs to be saved. Turns out Asbel is Listel's brother. He thanks Nausicaa for staying by her side while she died. The trees of the toxic jungle must have evolved to purify the earth from all the toxins left over from the humans. Once they die, they become petrified and fall into the earth, forming underground caverns of purified air and water. That's what I wrote there. The insects evolve to guard the place, which is super cool. So basically, it's like a defense mechanism so the earth can heal itself. It's all true. Humans are screwed. It's going to take thousands of years to purify the earth, and humans can't last that long, says Asbel. They're going to have to stop the jungle somehow. And Nausicaa's like, have you fucking not listened to anything that I say? You sound exactly like the Ptolemechians. You don't understand what's going on. War is not the answer. You can't burn down this forest. We need it. Over in the Valley of the Wind, Yupa watches as the Ptolemechians continue to awake the warrior. Kuratoa receives word that the princess's ship has gone down, and he's like, thank God, it's my time to shine now, guys. I got this. And everyone's like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? He tells his commander not to inform the villagers and just keep waking up the warrior, and he's going to take it shopping, I imagine, or maybe to Starbucks. I don't know what his plan is, but it's not as good as Uma Thurman's. Mito and the team return. Yupa tells Kushana.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Was Uma Thurman, like, I know that, was she the boss? Because it
Yes.
sounded like she was taking back, or like she had some plan to go back and talk to some people.
She's the princess of
Is the princess, yeah.
Tolmekian or whatever.
So she was taking it back to the king or queen?
I don't know
She
why.
was like, I don't want to deal with those people, is what she said. Something like that. As she's going back. Like, she doesn't want the warrior, the large warrior, once referred to as a robot. Which isn't.
Some people still think it's a robot.
A lot of people do. A mud robot. You know
absolutely-
what I mean?
Despite there being absolutely zero evidence. to
Does
the
robot
contrary.
mean metal? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it
I
does.
don't know.
I don't know.
If you type
I
it
don't
in,
know.
It's an actual
What is a
synonym for
robot?
steel.
I'm
Are you a robot, Kevin?
I feel like a robot
Robot.
sometimes inside. You know what I mean?
Push the
Robot's a
button,
machine.
push
Yeah,
button.
but like a machine, an android's in a machine. You know what I mean? And
Cats
they
know
can
what
be
you mean.
flesh. And they
Cats
can be
can
flesh.
lick flesh off a bone.
Anyways,
I'm going to tell you that looking
Have
at
you ever seen a millipede eat a fucking bird?
guys, it's
I-
fucking terrifying. Their mouth works way more effectively than it looks like it works. It's
Let's-
horrifying.
I want to let you guys know that when you Wikipedia robot, the entry is extremely long, and it is probably 7 or 8 paragraphs down till the word metal is even brought up.
wow.
And it's
Thank
only
you,
brought up in
Tim.
the sense that robots were made to just move metal.
Kevin. Wow.
There you
That's what I'm
Kevin
talking
might be right.
about. Organic
Kevin might be right.
robots are still robots.
Kevin.
You know what I mean?
Let's see. Mito
Why
and the
does it
team return.
melt? We'll talk about it later.
Organic.
We'll talk about it later.
Well, because it's not fully formed yet. That's why. Yupa tells Kushana that they'll let her go if she promises to drown the warrior in the acid lake. But the other kingdoms won't stop trying to revive the warrior. She says they'll come for it, so I gotta revive it first, which is the age-old sort of like, hey, we got to build the nukes before they build the nukes, because if we have the nukes first, then we'll be able to stop them from having the nukes. And we all know how that turned out in the 80s, right? That's why I've got 3 heads. A small child comes to tell them that some of the spores survived and are spreading poison throughout the valley. Chris Sarandon is who I'm going to tell him, so I stopped slaughtering his Japanese name. Gives the
Jack
villagers
Skellington, dude.
yeah, thank you. Back of their tools so they can fight the spores, but not their guns. But Baba comes and tells them that the whole forest is doomed. They got to burn everything down. And everyone's like, why is your first instinct, old lady, just to burn shit? And she's like, I want to give everyone the rotten apple. And they'll all go to sleep.
I love that, like, they do not have the luxury and time to, like, be like, hey, let's figure out where it is and where it's spread. It's just like, fucking burn it and burn it right now. We do not have. They say that themselves. They're like, we don't have time to mess around. Give me my match.
Let's see. Uma Thurman, left alone, of course, frees herself. And it's at one point she notes that she's lost a lot to the toxic jungle, one of which is her hand, and we see her legs as well are kind of robotic. So we can discern that. She makes the comment about like whatever future husband has like is going to see a lot more than this. Basically, like I think she's missing a lot of body parts. They find the dead Ohm at the heart of the. So Nausicaa and of course Asbel reach idle high above the jungle where there are no insects in sight. insects in sight. They approach Pejite and find a haze over the city. As they get a little closer, they find it's in smoldering ruins with dead bugs everywhere, and they find the corpse of a dead Ohm at the heart of the city. It's the destroyed capital. They spot a Pejite airship landing ahead of them. The mayor of Pejite, played, of course, as Tim noted by Mark Hamill, tells Asbel the plan is in motion to get the warrior back from the Village of the Wind by luring insects into the valley and destroying the whole thing. Nausicaa tries to escape to warn her people, but they restrain her. She tells them if they burn down the toxic jungle, it'll ruin the earth. It's the only thing purifying the pollution, and the insects are there to protect it. Burn it down, and they'll die of pollution. And everyone's like, that's someone else's problem, guys. Global warming's not real. It's not real. It's someone else's problem. Which is why, guys, I don't have kids. Asbel jacks a gun and tries to free
Nausicaa.
Nausicaa.
Why you don't have kids? You're not mature enough for it.
I am a child. Kevin, you ever seen a kid raise another kid? It does not.
Yeah,
go well.
it's bad.
Nick, hey Nick, you
yeah.
ever seen a millipede eat a rat?
I've seen a really millipede eat a bear.
Andy, just watch it. It's the kind of shit that's gonna ruin your weekend.
Tim, I like that you're wearing like.
Saying don't YouTube it. Now you're saying do it.
I just want Andy to watch it because it's like he's like keeps throwing out there like, oh, funny. It's fucked up, and that like gives so much context to this goddamn giant centipede that almost ate the kid. Remember? That's why I was bringing it up because I know what it would look like if it grabbed him and started eating his face.
You guys want to see the real? You guys want to see some added layers to Lion King? Google lions eating deer, and that'll just tell you everything you need to know about Simba. I do want to note quickly that Tim looks like he's wearing the away jersey for the Coca-Cola team, which is awesome.
Let's go, baby.
Like normally it's red when they play at home, but when they go away,
gotcha. That's their special anniversary edition.
Yeah, that's dope.
It's dope.
Let's
Remember
see.
when we got this, Nick? We got this together.
Oh, did we really? That's
In
a cool
Atlanta.
story. Oh yeah, when I hugged the polar bear. That's when you could hug things.
Yeah.
Now you can't get it. You got to be 6 feet away and hug with your eyes. Andy, I'm hugging you with my eyes.
Andy, you want to see some fucked up shit? Look up polar bear eating baby seal. It's horrifying.
I'll tell you everything you need to know about those Coca-Cola commercials, if you know what I mean.
Andy, they like to have fun with them too,
Oh,
and it's not the kind of fun that we're used to.
Kevin, why?
There's that warning for everyone. Let's see. Kashana looks down into the valley below where she sees the villagers overpowering the Tolmekian soldiers. Chris Sarandon, Jack Skellington watches as some villagers hijack a tank. Uma Thurman arrives, and Skellington relinquishes control as the villagers fall back. And he's like, well, there goes my dream. And everyone's like, you're a useless character. All the villagers fall back to the ancient ship near the acid lake. Up in the air, a Tolmekian ship spots the airship from Pejite, which holds Nausicaa as prisoner. Lestel's mother, played by Jodie Benson, rescues Nausicaa. She meets up with Asbel, and together they head over to the glider. When they try to launch, the Tolmekians open fire, forcing the ship into the storm of the toxic clouds. I love this scene. When they pop out the other side, they're met by the Tolmekians, who attempt to board the ship. We get a lot of like midair pirate stuff going on here, and I'm like, hey, Chris Nolan, I see where you stole that scene from Dark Knight Rises. You know what I'm talking about? Plane. Oh, the fire rises, brother. Do I have to stay here? Yeah, you have to stay here. Why do I have to stay here? They expect to find one of us, but they don't even know who we are. Yeah, but I don't like you. You always ask too many questions. Oh, I get it. Okay. Nausicaa wants to stay, but Asbel pleads with her to go and save her people.
Wait,
He's like,
real quick, did you not like that Batman movie, or like? Because I couldn't tell.
No, it was just a weird. It was just a weird thing. Like, no, brother, you have to stay. The guy's like, I don't have to stay.
No, but like the guy was like, yes, babe.
Like, yeah.
Remember, he was like totally all in.
Cool way to be like to get rid of coworkers you don't like. We're like, no, brother.
Oh, Nick, I think about that very often.
I know. We could easily kill him. No one would know. No one would know. Just kidding. I love your hair. It looks great right now.
Thank you.
Show us the away jersey one more time. Show us our king. Right.
There it is.
Man. Hey, shout out. You know what I'm talking about, Andy? Woo!
You know what I'm saying, baby? Come on.
There it is, baby. Come on. Baby. I thought about you. Almost got a cherry Coke Zero the other day.
I'm sorry, Belinda. I don't know why I invited you on this show. This
Belinda
is like
did all
the worst
with
thing
the millipede.
next to watching millipedes eat rats.
It's okay.
I'm just trying to add context to the movie on like how fucked up it would have been if her little glider didn't catch.
We get it.
Because his head would have just been chopped in half right there. That's what was about to happen. Just so you guys know, I didn't want to get graphic, but you've made me do it.
There it is. There it is. The Tolmekian soldiers reach the cargo hold, but Asbel pushes her Nausicaa and her glider out the launch bay as he fights them off. She and Teto watch as the battle continues aboard the Pegite ship. The Tolmekian ship changes course, to pursue her, but instead is met by Mito and Lord Yupa's gunship, who deliver a fatal blow to the Tolmekians. Then Yupa, just like a fucking G, just jumps aboard the Pegite ship and just wrecks all of the Tolmekian guards.
The way he actually jumps on, where he's doing this little thing, it's so cool. And they're like,
the coolest
anyone
thing ever.
that kills him will be famous forever, and then they all go after him, and they're all gonna be dead.
Yeah,
They're all
It
gonna be dead. They don't
it
stand a
reminded
chance.
me of incredible movie and film history, where Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious does a jumping headbutt move. Remember that?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the power
Remember
move.
that? That's what it reminded me of.
The thing about
The knee of Captain America in the elevator, and he's surrounded by all
Oh,
these
yeah.
people, and he wrecks them.
Or Optimus Prime in Revenge of the Fallen in the forest. He
no
dies
one
at the
remembers
end of
that scene.
but
Nobody
still.
remembers that scene, Tim.
I forgot we
We all
watched those
blocked
movies.
that scene out of our mind. High tension wires.
Man, these movies are
Damn.
so much better than those movies,
I know.
Like,
I'm
thank
enjoying
God
it.
we're
This is
doing
what's
this.
wrong with society today. Anyway, so Nausicaa pushes the gunship that she's in with Mito to the limits so she can reach the valley in time. Uma Thurman and her soldiers have the valley people pinned down in the ancient abandoned ship. We get a touching scene where 3 villagers who stole the tank are being held hostage by the Tolmekians, and they tell her how different she is from Nausicaa and how they should find a way to live in harmony with the forest and only use. She's like, I'm gonna burn everything down. He's like, you're missing the point, and you're nothing like our princess.
I love this
You-
scene
yeah.
so much because
And-
the villagers reflect how their leadership is acting, so
Mhm.
you can totally see the difference between all of the villages.
And important note, this is a turning point for the princess, the Tolmekian princess, because she's like, she kind of flips the switch where she's like, I want to talk to Nausicaa now. Now I want to get to know her. Like, before I just wanted to destroy everything, but this perspective is clearly maybe a little different than mine. It might be a good idea to listen to potentially. Of course, then she's like, I'm just gonna kill everyone instead. She orders an attack as the winds die, and this is a cool thematic moment where like the winds die down, and Obaba feels it too. Something is very, very wrong. The atmosphere is saturated with anger. Nausicaa and Mito notice a red glow coming from the ground below. It's a massive herd of Ohm heading toward the valley. Something out there is calling to the herd and making them stampede. Mito sends a flare out as they spot, and then the flare illuminates kind of like a hot. I'm gonna call it a hot air balloon, even though it's not, but it looks like the basket of a hot air balloon. It's carrying a small baby Ohm that's being basically tortured. They've lag bolted
In the
these
most
spikes into it.
graphic way, yeah.
It's really, and it's bleeding
really,
out.
It is bleeding a lot.
Kushana has
Very
chosen. Let's see. Nausicaa rips. This is cool. She like gets pissed off and she rips off like a little handle from the cockpit and uses it as a makeshift zip line, and the zip line's up to her glider.
Oh, cool.
Pretty dope. She's like, she tells Mito to head to warn the valley, and she's going to take care of this Ohm situation. Kushana has, of course, chosen the bloody path and orders her troops to move in while she watches. Her people fire on the gunship, but she orders them, when she sees them firing on Nausicaa's gunship, she orders them to stop because she wants to know what happened to Nausicaa. And this is, I think, a little bit of a turning point for her. Mito tells them that the Ohm Stampede, and tells everyone to get to high ground while Nausicaa tries to save them all. Obapa then tells a group of small children that they're all fucked and they're all going to die. But Mito tells everyone
Super mature thing to do.
as long as the princess hasn't given up, neither will we. Then Kushana orders her soldiers to hold off the stampede while she finishes waking the warrior. Out at the baby Ohm site, Nausicaa attempts to reason with the balloon pilots, which works on one of them, who sees, of course, the image of their lost princess. Or the other lost princess, excuse me. She hops aboard, getting a shot, but she actually hops aboard the balloon. She gets shot in the process, but succeeds in taking the whole ship down. The baby Ohm's eyes flash red as Nausicaa cries and asks for forgiveness. She tries to stop it from moving as it starts moving toward it wants to move toward the herd, but it's bleeding to death. And of course, off in the distance, the stampede realizes that and approaches. It changes courses. Nausicaa tries to stop the baby from going into the acid lake because it'll die. And then, of course, she burns her foot in the process, which this act of kindness and sacrifice snaps the Ohm out of its rage. And then it uses its feelers to scan Nausicaa. She cries by its side, and everything seems okay until she sees the herd change direction once again back toward the valley. She picks up the 50 cal and tells the Tolmekian pilots to take her and the baby to the herd. And the pilot's like, I don't know if I want to do that. And the other guy's like, she's holding a 50 caliber machine gun. Do what she says. And not only is she holding it, but she's holding it with zero effort. She's just like, you know what I mean? Like the fucking smart guns.
Those aren't
And she
light.
shoots
Those
it.
aren't
She's
light.
serious.
She's ready.
Then we go back to the valley, and another kid asks Obaba if they're going to die, and she says basically nothing to comfort the poor kid.
Yes.
Again, up on the hill, Kashana rides a tank onto the ridge, and then right behind her, the giant warrior emerges from the sand. And man, this thing could have used a few more minutes to cook in the oven, if you guys know what I'm talking about. It's like a piece of lasagna that you try to cut into, and the whole thing just like, it just goes everywhere.
Isn't it usually the lasagna's overcooked?
That the lasagna's there? I don't know.
Okay.
That's good point. I guess it would be
Because the pasta's breaking up.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. That was the poor thing. It's it's a good point. And actually, that doesn't even work for the next analogy I have, which is like it's like the.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this.
No, it's a good point. I like to be corrected on these things. I go back and I redo all these notes because one day I'm going to put them out as a book.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I've heard that.
That's a good idea, actually, dude.
No, it isn't. That's
I
a
just
terrible idea.
I have to go back and edit a lot of them because some of the more dirty humor that's more Tim oriented, mostly it's just toward Tim and his hair and his body. I have to edit out.
So
Can you imagine if all of these were typed out and PDF'd or whatever, and we made it a digital book, and we
I
got
think that's illegal.
Dave Fenoy to do the voiceover?
I think that's
Holy
illegal
shit.
though. Like I
Audiobook?
think
We'll send them a note telling them we're doing it.
Yeah, just tell them. Yeah, just let them
you
know
know what I
first.
mean?
It's
You
fine.
can't be like, hey, we're gonna summarize your movie, and
will
we're gonna
Kevin,
pay an actor.
Kevin,
to
we
say
make it a
so that-
Patreon product. Nobody's gonna get mad at us. Dude.
Oh
That's
right,
what
because
we
then
do.
they're not. It's a free perk. They're paying for the like calendar, right?
We'll send
Tim. Hey Tim, remember when you?
We're stealing your shit. Love.
I was gonna say, Tim, remember when? Does anybody else remember when Tim was like, Andy, I want us to do a Patreon exclusive Fast and Furious poster, but it's just gonna be art of the Fast and Furious movies? And I was like, that has nothing to do with Kind of Funny, Tim. And he was like, nah, but it'll look cool on my wall.
I don't remember that at all.
Hey, I still stand by it. It would look really cool.
Up on the hill, this thing comes out and it starts melting like that dude from RoboCop that smashed into the vat of toxic waste. Regardless, it's still able to spit fire at the herd, but the massive blast fails to stop all of the ohm. They continue. They hit it again, but the second blast all the warrior can take, and then it soon falls apart around Kashana.
Really a disappointment, you know?
Mhm.
Like
Very much.
They were like, "Oh, look, it's gonna."
The children, of course, back on the hill, note that the giant warrior died, and then Obaba tells them that that's the way it should be. The anger of the Ohm reflects the anger of the earth. If we have to rely on the protection of the warrior monster, we deserve to die. And it's at this point that I'd be like, hey, kids, let's go over here and let Grandma Obaba have some space. You know what I mean? Let's just give her a little space because she is not dealing with this situation appropriately. She reminds me of my grandma Renali, who, like, anytime anything would happen, she would just get stone cold and get pissed off and just confront it with violence. Anyways,
I'm sorry about that, Nick.
Yeah, she threw me and my brother in the closet. She would just throw us in the closet and lock us in there for a little bit. To be fair, we were assholes, so we both were giggling and be like, "We deserve this." Cheers. Where'd we get these Bud Lights from? We're 4. Anyway, the Ohm rammed the ship, bringing the hull down on the villagers inside as a thick cloud of dust kicks up into the air. Yupa and Asbel approach in the Pegite ship. They watch as little by little the Ohm herd's rage subsides and they turn blue again. And they're like, what the heck is going on? And the villagers watch as the baby Ohm excuse me, I skipped a spot here. I'm sorry. I apologize about that. Let's go back a little bit. Nausicaa flies in and sets the baby Ohm down directly in the path of the stampede as they're surrounding that ship. And in doing so, she gets punted into the air and her lifeless body kind of goes up. And you're like, oh, shit, she is dead as doornails. And then, of course, Yupa and Asbel approach and they watch as all of the herd that was previously trying to kill the villagers turns to blue and they subside. And then the villagers pop out of the ship and they look down and they watch as the baby Ohm crawls to the side of Nausicaa's body. Obaba tells the kids that the princess has quieted the rage in the air. She's given her life to save the valley. And at this point, again, I'd be like, just Grandma, shut up. You're not making it any better. One of the Ohms, of course, reaches its feelers out and lifts Nausicaa into the air. Its feelers are joined by those of the surrounding Ohm and a sparkle of a sparkle of light fills the air, bringing
Real
Nausicaa.
quick before we get to this really magical, beautiful moment, I would love for a coroner to have diagnosed exactly how she died, because like she had to have broken every damn bone. With these giant bugs running over her, she should have just been mush. Like there shouldn't have been a recoverable body, you know.
That's very true. Let's see. They, of course, all the feelers join in from all the ohm around her, and they lift her in the air, and we get this beautiful golden light. And then we hear her childhood singing again as she and Teto look down. They wake up, they look down, and see the baby ohm healthy and back in its mother's embrace. Ababa cries as the children tell her. She asks, she's kind of blind. She's like, I can't really see what's going on. All the other children are like, really? This whole time you haven't been able to see what's going on? Why are you terrifying us then, old lady? If you really don't know what's happening. Somebody get Baba her bottle, get her courage juice. Anyway, Baba cries as the children tell her that the princess, she's like, describe to me what's happening. And she says, well, the princess is dressed in a beautiful blue gown and she's walking on this this golden sort of field. And she's like, it's the prophecy I told you guys about. It's the prophecy. The legend has come true. Excuse me. Fuck yeah. Up in the air, Nausicaa's glider floats in the returning wind, and all the villagers are super stoked. Like, the wind's back, everything's going to be okay. The villagers and the Tolmekians alike celebrate. Asbel lifts Nausicaa into the air as the Ohm return to the jungle. And then under the ending credits, we see Nausicaa speaking for a moment with Kushana before she takes off on the Tolmekian ship and the forces leave the valley, hopefully for good. Peace and prosperity is restored to the valley. And then the final shot is Nausicaa and Yupa ride into the caves, where we see a glimpse of a small little tree growing underneath the toxic forest.
What a quick cut to credits. It was just like, oh shit, we're done.
Yeah.
But then I like that they kind of gave the epilogue.
There's a little
in the
epilogue
credits,
there,
which was really cool.
But I also don't know if that's just because we've become so accustomed to movies getting drawn out for a long ass time afterwards. You know what I mean?
Exactly why.
Yeah.
That is exactly why.
Yeah,
Because I
the
feel like
end
a lot
of Transformers 3 Dark of the Moon, where it just kind of ended out of
Oh
nowhere.
yeah. 7 syllables in the middle. You need 5 for the first and last line. If you're not poetic, no need to fret it. Haikus don't need to rhyme. Haiku in review. Haiku in review.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunny to write your review in haiku form, just like awesome Ethan did. My favorite one. So pure, calm, brutal, and grand. Nausicaa. I stand. That was a good one. Good job, Ethan. Samuel Griffin says, even Steven's back. Nausicaa needed some pants. Joe Hisaishi. GOAT. There you go. Or goat, I imagine.
The goat.
Because that's too many syllables. Parker says, Ohm are so cute. Love nature. Stop polluting. The valley will heal. I don't know that I'd call them cute.
The Ohm? The little baby Ohms?
They're cute.
I think when they
The tentacles are definitely not cute.
I think it's the big eyes. Like when it's the close up shot with the crazy FOV of the big feelers like running and shit. I think it's really scary.
I like the little
But
legs.
when it's the big eyes, just kind of like blue, and it's like, they're peaceful.
Wait,
you
those
know?
little
The
legs.
baby one is for sure cute.
Those little legs
Yeah.
weren't for running, were they?
I think
Like,
so.
Didn't it move like a worm?
It did, but it also had these like.
I thought that was
Yeah.
just like excitement, like we're gonna kill
No.
things. I'm pretty sure that wasn't
We're gonna
pulling.
get
That's not pulling its weight. Like they're like not sturdy enough to do that.
The Air Barber says Lupin didn't hit, but Nausicaa was the shit. War kills, nature heals. And the final one, Andrew Feistner comes in with Nausicaa wholesome. The valley air is poison. Just wear a dang mask.
I love that. Yeah, there are
That's
several
funny.
moments where they're like, put on the damn mask.
Now it's time for
Ragu
MVP.
Goo.
And
Oh.
no, this one is MVP.
Oh, gotcha.
Again, it's another one where
It
like
has to
Nausicaa's
be
so dope.
Patrick
She's so
Stewart,
dope.
dude.
it's so awesome.
I'm gonna give it.
This is one of those times where I'm like, I give it to the protagonist. And I know that it's movies are set up that way, but I feel like MVP a lot of the time we give it to the thing that's coolest, and she's fucking cool consistently.
But is she
I agree.
cooler
She's-
than Patrick Stewart?
Yeah,
Oh,
She
you're
glides, bro.
crazy.
She
Oh,
does
she
glide,
glides.
dude.
I think
I think
is.
She
Mito's
saved him
cool.
in that first.
Yeah,
Mito's cool.
but
too.
he like then saves a bunch of people.
But also remember Patrick Stewart just taking a blade to his fucking forearm
Oh
and
my
just
God,
like
it's just
holding it
going
there and
in,
being
yeah.
like, everybody chill out. And you see the blood start pouring out, and it's really scary because at that point I don't know what his future is. Like, I don't
wish
know
I
if
could
he's
say it was Tato, but it's not. He's cool, but he doesn't. I wish he had a moment, like his own moment.
Well,
But-
Tato, I think, deserves a lot of credit because Tato survived inside of her shirt when she was thrown up into the air at least a mile.
That's fair. That is
We
fair.
can do most
You know?
valuable pet. We can do most valuable pet.
Yeah, most valuable.
Okay,
pet
you know what?
Tato.
Fuck it. I'll give him MVP for that.
There we go. There we go.
But do we put him above or below Fujiko from Cagliostro?
Below.
Below.
Okay.
She was cool though, man.
She was, yeah, man. There you go. Tato from Nausicaä. All right, now it's time to rank it. Obviously,
Oh,
number
you
one
all
right
said
now.
below. I don't know why I mistook below for above.
Oh no, yeah, no. She's cooler than him.
Number one, we have Castle of Cagliostro. Where do we think Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind falls? I'm gonna be the first person to say that I think that this is gonna be the. I'm probably gonna be alone here, but I do think that I prefer Cagliostro over this. I like this a lot. I think it's awesome, but there's just something where I just really like the humor and the vibe, and I think that
it's a different movie.
both movies did really good job introducing me to a world, following the world's rules, like creating like characters that I gave a shit about. But there's just something where I like my personal taste align with the more kind of fun, like 70s buddy copy feeling vibes that Lupin gave me. But it's pretty close.
I really, really like Lupin, but I like this better. Like, just overall, I felt like this story had me engaged more the whole time.
Yeah, I'd go with the I mean, the cast of characters, the themes, the story, the world building. I thought this movie is awesome. Like, I'm so glad we're doing this series, or else this is a movie that I just would have never seen.
I definitely would put it over Lupin for me. It might even be in my top 3 for the entire series, but we'll see.
Wow.
I love it so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's too early to tell.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Castle of Cagliostro, and I think I'm going to put that a nudge above Nausicaa. But if Nausicaa gets put above it on the list, I'm not going to be mad about that. I think they're very, very, very different movies, but this movie is stunning and beautifully made, and very, very unbelievable for like a second film that someone did. I'm with Tim, where I just love the fun, kind of carefree, silly, spy criminal vibe, like thief vibe of Cagliostro. So that's just because it's more fun. This is a lot more serious and like beautiful, and I think that this deserves to be high up on the list. Again, if it gets put above Cagliostro, I'm not going to hate it. It's not.
And it does. Right now, number 1, Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind. Number 2, Castle of Cagliostro. Next week, we're doing Castle in the Sky. Who has seen that?
I've never.
Belinda and Kevin.
It's true.
The rest of us, virgins going into the castle.
I've only seen Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle, and
Totoro.
Totoro. Yeah.
I hope
Exciting
you guys
times
like
ahead.
robots.
Until next time.
Bye, everybody.